Welcome to the Kidney Trails Fireside Chat. It is a fireside. You know what? I could use a fire. It's a little chilly now, but we're excited to be here. It's definitely this is definitely a different thing that we've done. We're here at 5 o'clock and 5:30 EST in the morning. So let me just make sure I can't see to you. Looking and I see just my head popping up and down. Anyhow, it's good to be here. I appreciate those that are in the audience and those that may not make it. We appreciate those of you that will be watching hashtag replay. But we're excited to be here. I'm excited to bring on a wonderful guest. I met him through a mutual connection on LinkedIn, Kyle, and it was really interesting. He had a very interesting perspective, and that's the one thing I want to talk about today. And we want to talk about with him, and we want to talk about really one of the things he said was really interesting was throwing away your bucket list, and that wasn't something that we had heard very often. So a lot of times we hear, we have a bucket list, this and that, but he said he had this idea, and I really want to explore it a little bit this morning and talk about taking the bucket list and throwing it away. I think it'll be very interesting. But anyhow, without further ado, we will bring him on. Good morning, Jay. How are you?
Hi, good morning. Yeah, very well, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being here on this show.
Quite all right. I have to say thank you as well. I appreciate it's middle of the morning here in Scotland, but I'm guessing it's pretty darn early where you are.
Oh, just a little bit. It's about 5:30 in the morning.
Ooh, that's well before my alarm, so thank you for doing it.
Oh, not a problem. I'm kind of used to it, anymore. I have other connections over there that listen in or that like to meet at pretty early morning because of the time. I believe what 5 hours difference.
Yeah,
So it can definitely be definitely a little different, but I'm okay with it. So
good stuff.
anyhow, it is good for you to be here. I am grateful that you're here. I'm excited to talk with you a little bit today about some of the different things. And if you want to, and if you would, just give us a few minutes, maybe about a 2 minute introduction about who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Jay Cramb. I am based here in Glasgow, in Scotland. Um, I have been through a number of different things, as I'm quite sure everybody who is listening has. We've all got our own stories. For myself, I have spent the last 18 months or so coming through a second brain tumour. And fortunately, great news in the last couple of weeks since we last spoke, Ant. Everything is going the right way, thank goodness. So, tumor mass has gone, and everything is looking really, really good for the future now. Touch wood every time I say it. So, what do I do here in Glasgow? I am kind of a double-edged sword at the moment. I am a sports therapist. However, my company, Ridgestone Physical, I closed it temporarily last year simply to focus on my health. And in the meantime, I have stepped up voluntarily with my networking club, the Revitalise Connecting People club. And yeah, I'm a professional connector as well. I'm helping support businesses grow, develop, and succeed. So yeah, I have a pretty full plate, and over time it's getting more full and getting a bit busier, but that's just in line with my health improving, getting back to being myself. I was unfortunate as well at the start of the year to get a dose of COVID,
Hmm.
which lingered for quite some time. But again, I'm through that, fully vaccinated, and again, just working my health back up. My first sort of round of brain tumour fiasco was in 2015-16. So I had a few years and then I had a relapse. And yeah, now, as I say, I'm hopefully out the other side and focusing on my general health and improving that. So onwards and upwards, I am hopeful hereof.
Yeah, when you're faced with physical conditions such as you have done, and some things maybe that some others in our audience have done, it can be kind of difficult to bounce back. And it seems like you're doing very well, so that's a wonderful thing. I think.
Thank you.
So when you and I were talking, it was about a couple months ago. We got on the call. We met through Kyle. It seems like Kyle's always connecting us with somebody. He said, meet this one, meet that one. I think they'd be great. We got to talking, and you were telling me your story. And one of the things you said that I found fascinating was, how, when people get news such as, a horrible disease or something of that nature, generally they all of a sudden create this bucket list, things that they want to do before their time. And you said one of the things that I found fascinating is you said, why do we need to create a bucket list when we get that? Why don't we just throw it away? You want to explain a little bit about that and how that all came about for you?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'll fill in a couple of details just around what I've been through to set the scene for it. So in 2015, I had my first diagnosis, my first brain tumor. I was in the hospital for almost 2 weeks for an operation to get it removed. I had 6 weeks recovery time after that before a round of 6 weeks of daily radiotherapy. And then the recovery thereafter. Unfortunately, at that time, after all of that, the MRI scans were showing that there was just 2 or 3 tiny little bits of what the doctors called shrapnel left over, sort of tiny little bits of tumor material. And for the next few years, I had a sort of 6 monthly annual scan. It sort of progressed over time. And at the end of 2020, that was when I rocked up. I'd become rather blasé about my scans and how things were going. And I rocked up to my oncologist at the end of 2020 after my scan. All right, doctor, how you doing? Just the usual. I'll see you in a year. And he turned around and said, you better sit down. And that's when we found out that what had happened was that shrapnel had all come back together and reformed as a tumour mass. And over the course, because it had reformed, it was the same type of tumour, which in some respects, fortunately, it was benign. But because of where it was, it would have done the job anyway. And because it was in the same place, all my options were suddenly a lot more challenging. Surgery was transphonoidal at that point. They went that way instead of that way. And they only managed to get part of it out before it grew back again. Chemotherapy didn't work because obviously the chemotherapy is to attack cancer cells. But as a benign tumour, there was nothing there for it to attack. And then it was probably round about this time, or maybe a bit earlier, just at the start of September time last year, I was told that the only option I had left was more radiotherapy, which they didn't want to do. And at the same time, they said, if the radiotherapy works, then I'll probably get 2 to 3 years of eyesight left, and I'll probably get 5 years full stop. Thank you very much. That's it, done and dusted. And the news hit me and my family, my parents, very hard. It wasn't an easy time for a few days. Um, I was on a roller coaster of emotions, as I'm sure you've been aware of yourself, and it's the up and down and up and down. And fortunately, I've been quite positive minded for most of my life, but certainly through a lot of this, and I learned very early on and realised and talked to other patients that a positive mindset was really, really important in dealing with this. And so I decided, right, well, if that's the case, what positive things can I do? And so a couple of folk had mentioned, put a bucket list together. What have you always wanted to do? And so that started the list. And the list was the first edition of the list, shall we say, was very, very long, with a whole load of wild and wacky stuff going on, excuse me, all around the world. And I realized at that point that, okay, I'm maybe being quite selfish here. It's all stuff I want to do, and there's nothing about anyone else involved with it. So I scrapped that list and restarted another list with a very, very strong mindset that it was going to be at least 70-30, if not 80-20, charity fundraising and personal stuff. And if I could mix the two, then all the better. It was one of the things that was top of my list. I'm an absolute roller coaster junkie, and I wanted to tour the States and go to all the roller coaster parks and raise money for going on as many roller coasters as I could, and get sponsored to do that as one of the many things. However, the list, I was thinking about that and thinking of charity events I could do. So that second list only got to maybe half a dozen things, 6 or 7 that were on there. But I'd been very, very positive minded, as I say. I'd been getting out doing walking every day just to get a bit of exercise. I had been staying in touch with friends. My networking community, the Revitalizers, were absolutely brilliant and really supportive in sending messages, staying in touch. And over time, maybe a couple of weeks or so after that news, I sort of thought to myself, right, wait a minute. If I'm writing a bucket list, I've already decided the outcome of my radiotherapy treatment, of my life ultimately, and was agreeing to some extent with the prognosis of I'll have 5 years and then it's see you later on my way. And I was like, actually, I'm not playing that game. I've got so much more in my life that I want to do, that I want to give, that I want to share. And I'm not prepared to accept that in 5 years' time I'm not going to be around. And I just decided there and then, you know what, I'm going to be here for at least another 40, if not more. And I'm very hopeful that I have good genes. My grandmother has just celebrated her 102nd birthday, so here's hoping I've got a long, long way to go. And yeah, I sort of thought, right, if I'm being positive about this, if I'm being as forward thinking about this as I can be, why am I telling myself, regardless of how much good I might be doing with it, regardless of where and what I want to be doing with it, why am I agreeing with a prognosis that I don't agree with by saying, let's write a bucket list. I'm going to die. Let's just accept it. And I was.
Yeah, I think that's when you told me that, I found it very fascinating, number one, because it's something that I've heard of people doing a lot. What's on our bucket list? What do you want to do before the end of life? And it kind of gets you in that negative mindset of where you're going to be. You've accepted the prognosis or the diagnosis of what has been given, and that it really has given you that time limit. And I think by taking that and pretty much kind of just throwing it away, it kind of takes away that time and say, hey, look, I've got. And the thing is, none of us know. That's the key. I mean, nobody can tell us really when our time is. When it happens, it happens. It's that's the thing. I remember 2016 when I was told something didn't change. I had 6 months. With my blood work, and it really it wasn't like they didn't say, well, go get a bucket list, but giving you a time limit doesn't help. A lot of times it's like, oh no, I'm closer to that time limit than I really want to. So I think it's a mindset change. It's a shift. And I think, and the one thing, as you said, is, with those that have had diseases, yes, I can tell you, no matter whether you are on dialysis, whether you've had cancer, whether you've had other horrible diagnoses, it still goes right here in the mind. If you don't overcome it there, it's going to overcome you.
Most
So
definitely.
that can be, and those that are maybe in this area of life, what would what advice would you give them if they just got diagnosed with something horrible? I mean, you were in that period, that 2, 3, that couple day period, couple weeks, couple months. Uh, what advice would you say, first of all, to get to that point? Because you're going to have to work through that first before you can get to that point of throwing that bucket list away. So, what would be what would the thing that you would tell people to start working on first?
So I guess I mean, I know everybody is different, and I've for all that I'm quite introverted. I do like to be the on-stage extrovert as well at times, and they told me that I was quite unique because the kind of humour I had and then the way it develops, it normally happens in childhood and it's dealt with and taken care of, and it only happens to 1 in 500,000 adults. And I thought, oh great, I'm special. But what that in turn meant was that actually the doctors throughout all of this, the consultants, the specialists, ummed and awed and weren't quite sure and didn't know where it was going. So ultimately, for me, it was up to me to make the decision of where I'm going with this because they couldn't tell me. As I say, I appreciate everyone's different. I appreciate that people find out at different stages of disease, infection, cancer, whatever it might be, and everyone will be in a very different place. I think the most important thing to do is to, in the first instance, when you get that news, ride the roller coaster, let the emotions out. It's not something that I do a lot. My emotions are there, and I'm quite an emotional person. They don't get out an awful lot. And for me, over that first 2 or 3 weeks of taking the news on board, I felt fine. I was processing it. I was working it. I was trying to stay positive minded. But every time I listened to music, like I had all my favorite tracks and all my favorite albums and stuff, and I like having music on around the house. And every time I put music on, random playlist, a song would come up, and for the first time in a very, very long time, I would hear the lyrics, and the lyrics were always what got me. And what always got me were the emotions coming up about how the people I'd leave behind were going to feel. And at that point, I just thought, well, I'm not ready for that. I'm not doing it. And then that's where I changed my mindset and changed my outlook. It's challenging. I think take every day as a win is the best thing. And even to this point in time, I'm a year and a half, almost 2 years later now, and I am still waking up grateful every morning. I look for the silver lining in every day, and I go to bed thankful every night for various things throughout my day, throughout my life, whatever it might be. And it can be the simple things. My mum was on holiday recently. She got back from Italy and her postcard arrived about 5 days after she got home. But that was a little bit of joy. I was like, yay, I got the postcard, brilliant, hung it up on magnet on the fridge. And it's the little things that will all add up in your day. If you look for all the little positive things, think of the sums, 2 plus 2 plus 2, infinite becomes a big, big number. You add up all the little things throughout your day, you get a nice big bunch of positive at the end of the day to be thankful for. And that just helps. The other thing that I did as well that I found really, really helpful was picking myself up on my language. So things like, I can't do that. That won't happen. I don't want to do that. I just removed the negatives from my language and said, well, I do want to do that. I can do that. I will do that. And by changing my own language and picking myself up on it, even by myself, just thinking things through, I found that over time, that became a natural way of thinking. So becoming a positive thinker became a really positive step for me as well. So lots of little things. I don't know how useful they'll be for people, but it's challenging, and obviously it will become more challenging with the more challenging the news, the prognosis, whatever the condition is that someone has. And I appreciate that, but yeah, I am in the positive mindset that if everybody thinks a little bit more positively, it will make big advances.
Exactly, and that's the thing that I've talked to many people that have been, of course, those that have those diagnoses like I was, right, with kidney disease, and those that I went to other meetings and stuff, was speaking alongside people that was diagnosed with all these other different cancers, stuff like that. And one of the things that we all can come to an agreement on is really a positive mindset really gives you an upper hand. I think, and especially in today's society and world, that is becoming, sad to say, more and more rare because it's a lot harder to do that. I mean, you think about it, you just pick up your phone and you could have the most negative news with you in less than a few seconds. So to be able to do that in this world, it's definitely a challenge, number one. But if you do it, you do have a better chance of overcoming it. I think when it comes to I think, yeah, I'd like to see more positive news, more the encouraging things, but that's not the case. It kind of runs. I did a podcast a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, talking about your mind's like a garden, and that if the negative news is the weeds, and weeds grow a lot quicker than the actual fruit. And
Mm.
so what you have to do is you have to keep pouring this, and that's almost a daily day. Sometimes it can be hour by hour job because different things can be here, there, here, and so you put yourself in this. You've gotten diagnosed with this negative thing, this disease, and then you go pick up your phone. Well, and we'll go look at such and such to see what happened there. And I've seen that before where people were, and I've been guilty of it too. Something happens. Oh, I need to go see what's going on. What do I need to do? And next thing you see, somebody's aunt or uncle or somebody's late cousin passed away from the very thing that you think you have. And so it really just sets in this right here and really kind of starts working. And there's before you know it, the weeds have overgrown the fruit. And it doesn't give
Yeah,
it time to grow. So I think that positive mindset is something that's uh, very important. And I like what you said is take the little things.
yeah,
Those little numbers add up. What did you say? The little numbers add up. Um,
yeah. Two plus two
uh,
plus two, all the way
yeah,
up, you'll get big, big numbers. And it's just by taking the little positive things throughout the day. And if you get half a dozen positive things that happen throughout the day, boom, you've got a big blob of positive at the end of the day to go, yes, that's for me. I'm having that.
yeah. Well, I think a lot of people can take, the first thing they can if they wake up, say, well, at least I woke up. That's a good thing.
Most definitely. That's how I start every day. Wake up
Yeah,
in bed and it's like, great, here we go, another day to get on with. And even with the Scottish weather being back to good old Scottish weather, which is wet, damp, and miserable for most of the time. Although I have to say the sun's shining today. Um, if you wake up and just think, yeah, great, here's another day to go out and do something and get on with it, all the better.
yeah, yeah. That's the thing. And I think I've seen this before because in over here in the states, we're getting ready to enter our winter. Uh, in winters, we're in fall time right now, which is beautiful. The leaves changing. I live up near the mountains, so I can see the leaves changing up the mountains and down the mountains, see all the beautiful views. But when winter hits, all that's away. Days grow really short. The time frame, and it's your daytime's from about 6, 7 in the morning to maybe 5 o'clock at night. And so you have this time and five beyond. That's when people get in this depressing mood because there's no daylight. They don't look at well, I can at least I've been able to cook me a meal, or now we can connect with people all over. I think COVID really kind of opened that up where people are connecting virtually, Zoom. Well, you can FaceTime, you can call, whatever it may be. So I think that's a positive too. That somebody say, hey, maybe I can, maybe even the show, hey, look, the show is going on. Yeah, it's 10:30 over there. It's almost 11 over there.
Yeah,
And it's almost 6 o'clock over here, and these things are there. This is why we do what we do. And my hope is with any of the shows is that we're creating more positive seeds out there.
mm-hmm.
So I think that, I like adding the little things, adding the little things. I love that
Yeah,
scenario that you gave out. One of the things you said is, ride the roller coaster. And I think it's very important emotionally for people to ride that roller coaster. You're going to feel a lot of emotions when you first get diagnosed with something. There's going to be uh, sadness, anger, maybe some depression at some points. But then sometimes you can look at it and say, hey, at least I'm here. At least I can still do this. And looking at it and kind of turn around. So riding the roller coaster with anybody, one of the things I say first, buckle up, so you don't go flying out of it because it can be. And then you talked about the music, how music in some regards can help you, but if you hit the wrong music at the wrong time, it can, and that can kind of throw you for the loop on the roller coaster that you didn't really want to ride. But what would you, when it comes to that riding a roller coaster? I want to dig into that a little bit more. Uh, what would be one thing that you would give them advice to when it first diagnosed you've got this roller coaster you're going to go on? I don't think there's really any time limit to that roller coaster. It can go on for a day, it can go on for several days.
Again, it's a very personal thing. You can be on that roller coaster for a couple of days. You can be on that roller coaster for a couple of months. You might not get off that roller coaster if you're a really sort of openly emotional person that's affected by the sun coming up, butterflies and the flowers, the rain falling from the sky. Then you could be on that roller coaster for a long time. I think, as I say, I'm a roller coaster junkie. I really love them. And I think whether you're going on the up or the down, just think, yeah, I'm getting through it. It's going on and I'm getting through it. And again, positive mindset. I'm enjoying it. It's a roller coaster. Of course, I'm loving it. That's my thing. But it's not going to be the same for everyone, which I appreciate. And I think if you if you talk more to people about the roller coaster you're on, then that helps as well. I had a couple of folk that I spoke to, one of my very best friends, and I've also got a very good colleague, and shared some things that no other soul knows about. But it got it off of here, got it out of here, and once it was out, the problem shared is a problem halved, as they always say. And it really helped to sort of settle, calm, emotional sort of turmoil. And I think that's an important thing to do as well. The more that you keep it locked up here and locked up here to go round in circles, that's excuse me, that's when it starts causing trouble, you know. And we all know that thoughts can manifest in physiology as well. So if these are going round and round in a really bad way, it's going to have a physical effect on you. So
Right. And that's the thing, that's another thing is I think when something like that happens, friends is a definitely, I don't want to call it a resource, but it's something that's needed. You need that support group, that support system around you. Uh, and sometimes, I know with me, sometimes I didn't really want to talk a lot about what was going on, but there was one or two people that I ended up just kind of unloading on, as far as unloading everything, just kind of let everything out. And for those that maybe those in our audience have a friend or a family member or somebody they know that has something like this. I think that is the key to be a good listener.
yeah,
Really listening to that, and sometimes it can be you're like, okay, I got other things to do than just listen to you all day, but being a good listener and really being empathetic about what they're facing, and I think it's for me, being that I went into dialysis, I had a support group within those that were on dialysis because I could see them and we could talk. Of course, we ended up talking about food and the things we couldn't eat, but it did help. But when you talk about that, have you met anybody else that has had somewhat of a diagnosis similar to what you've had?
no, I've not. As I say, this happens to 1 in 500,000 adults. The type of tumor that I've got, and even I look back and laugh now. But when I was put on chemotherapy last year, the chemotherapy they put me on was based on a pediatric paper from several years ago for a drug that kind of worked on this kid that mixed in with a whole load of other treatments that he got, and it was ticked off as working. And I was like, but that's nothing like me, you know. So yeah, I've not met anyone that's gone through exactly this. Don't get me wrong though. When I went through my radiotherapy, I had 6 weeks of daily radiotherapy to deal with this, and in the same hospital, the same room, with the same people every day, you get to know some folk, and everybody's story is different. Um, and you start talking to folk, and I think when you're on the health roller coaster, not specifically a kidney problem, a brain problem, just the health roller coaster as it is, um, you can see, and it was interesting over the 6 weeks, people came and went, having started and finished treatment at different times. But you would walk in, and there was two or three folk that I knew that were right. Let's go. It's another day. We're going to deal with this. Let's get on with it. And then there was the other folk that were just sort of quiet, hunched over, sat in a corner, and you could almost tell that they'd given up, given in. And I never knew their story. I never found out their story or their backstory or the reasons why. But my heart went out to them. It was just like, come on, there's always something. Take another breath, look upwards, smile at the sun, whatever it might be. But obviously, everybody's a bit different. So
Everybody is different. And I do want to touch on that because I remember when I was on dialysis, there was an individual that started the same time as I did, and there was two different mindsets. They were a little older than I was, not about 20 years older than I was. I was 22 when I started, and so a little older than I was, but still had a lot of life to live. At least I thought, and it was time after time. I saw people 3 days a week. And the next thing I know, their spring in their step isn't as springy. And then it wasn't long before one day I saw them and I saw that look. And I can't explain that look to people. It's just I know that look. And that look was they were done. They had given up. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, it won't be long. And it wasn't long. I sit there as someone that was doing dialysis. I remember that back in those days. I saw it and it wasn't long before I never saw them again. They had just given up. And for me, I'm more of a positive person, I would say. Uh, that has always stuck in my mind.
mm,
That it was a prime example. It was a prime example. I think it's something that how one way can lead and versus how another way can lead. Like you said, you had two people in there that you saw every day. You knew they were going to be joyful, energetic, and maybe they weren't feeling the greatest that day, but you knew that they looked at life in a more positive aspect. And then there was other people that just kind of got under it. So to do that, when you went in there and you saw those people, did you make up your mind which one you wanted to be?
I think that's a big part of it. I think if you almost make the decision for yourself. Forget prognosis, forget what you've been told. The human body is an amazing machine. It's an amazing piece of equipment, and it's amazing what the mind body connection can do. And yeah, if you make up your mind, I'm not having this, I'm getting on with it. It's it's a big part. It's a big way towards your recovery. I I remember when I got my last round of scans that I was talking about. Um, when I had that great news, my oncologist actually said, after telling me all the great stuff, he said, "Well, obviously, I need to tell you because it's a benign tumor. There's a possibility it'll come back, and blah blah blah." And you could almost see him not believing his own words. And I have to say, at that point, I decided there's no coming back. I'm done. I've been through it twice. I'm going to get on with life now. I've got a lot I want to do, and I'm not playing the game anymore. And I've stuck by that, and I'm continuing to get onwards and upwards. There's this couple of small things. Obviously, I'm wearing an eye patch. I've kind of lost the use of my right eye. But I'm having great fun learning how to use my symbol cane. And there's a good number of let's just say, accidental bruises around Glasgow as I'm learning how to use it. And it's just, once you make your mind up, and I think it's making the decision of what you want the outcome to be, and then looking at all the positives throughout every single day, it makes such a massive difference. If you decide to give into it, or if you just end up, emotionally out of energy and just end up giving into it because you bottled it all up, if you lock yourself away in the house every day and don't get out, fresh air, sunshine, vitamin D, it's all really useful for you. Um, then you're not doing yourself any favors. Given, I appreciate in some situations it might be challenging. That's where your support network comes in, to whether it's help you into your wheelchair and get you out, whether it's opening the curtains and opening a window to let the fresh air in, whether it's taking you out for lunch, whatever it might be. That's where your support network comes into it as well. But yeah, if you make your mind up about how it's going to go, you're a good 60, 70% of the way on the right path.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You keep saying something. I like this. You said you just got to keep moving. Moving forward. I just had to keep moving. And moving on. Michael Crossan, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a speaker from Australia, and he wrote a book called "Kids Don't Get Cancer." Phenomenal book. He's got another. He just released his updated version of it too. And one thing he said, and I took this from him, was life moves on with you or without you.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to move on either way. What are you going to do? And he said he decided to move on with life. He said that and that's kind of the I'm writing. I just did another blog the other day, and I just released it, calling the song the unheard song. I think it's what I call it. I can't remember the title. That's not good. Either I'm waking up way too early this morning or something's going on, but my mind's just. I haven't had my coffee yet. I blame the coffee.
Definitely needed.
But in the story, I was talking about how the emotional, when I was given, the 6 months, the emotional roller coaster, going on the music and having their song to play, and really the only thing that came out was tears from the eyes, and how they fell down and touched the ivory and played the song that only the master could hear. The next portion of that story is I'm going into is where I finally made up my mind that I was going to live life no matter what. 6 months is not a lot for anybody, really, but especially when you're 20 some years old. That's not a lot of time. People say, well, I've got 6 months to do it. It's not a lot. It goes by, and it's like a vapor. It's very quick, and before you know it, and we'll go into that portion of where life will move on with you or without you, and where I finally made up my mind, no matter what, kind of like in your scenario, I was like, forget this. There, in all reality and all respect, the doctor can't tell me when I'm going to live or die. They're not the one that created me. So they can give a good guess and say, you may or may not, but it's that mindset. It goes right back into that. And I think, like I said, anybody that I've talked to go into that. It goes right into that mindset. They generally start with the positive things because it's kind of easy. So how would you say would be a good way to start getting a positive mindset for somebody? So say they haven't really dug into it much, but what would your starting thing be? Would you say I would, start this way to start a positive mindset?
So I think positive mindset. I think the best way to start is a really simple little tool almost. Get yourself a little book, a little jotter, nice little notebook, whatever it might be. Get yourself a hardback one, nice cover, decorate it yourself, whatever it might be, and start a gratitude diary. So at the end of every day, start a gratitude diary. Just write down 3 things that day that you're very grateful for, that you're thankful for, that made you happy, and just write them down, reflect on your day, have a look at them, and then yeah, that's great, thank you, that's brilliant. Go to bed, keep it in mind when you fall asleep, wake up the next morning grateful and thankful that you've woken up for another day. Have a look at that, remind yourself of what you were grateful for the day before, and then start your day. And then at the end of the next day, do the same thing. The next day, you do the same thing. And it's just a little step to remind yourself of three things. And you know what? As the days goes on and you are becoming more appreciative of things, that list might grow. You might end up with a list of 12 things you were really grateful for, 20 things you were really grateful for, but stick to three. Prioritize three, look at three, because you'll be able to keep them in mind when you fall asleep, and you'll become, accustomed to it and wake up with them still in your mind. Grateful that you remember them, grateful that you've woken up for the day. Start the next day and do the same thing again and again.
Hmm. I love that. The gratitude, a lot of people, and I don't think anybody's really wrong. It's different ideas. And a lot of people say, well, start with a motivational quote, start with this, but I love the idea of starting with a gratitude diary. That's kind of going back beyond the basics,
It's
beyond the basics.
so simple, but it's so effective. And it
Yeah,
really, it's so personal as well, because it's things in your life, it's things that you've done, it's things that have happened to you, and it's the simplest step to move forward, as you say. One step in front of the other every single day keeps you going, keeps you moving forward, keeps you grateful, helps change the mindset to a positive way of thinking.
yeah, and I think a gratitude diary. I see it. I kind of see it as like a flashlight in the midst of a foggy night. It cuts through that. It helps you to start to see that path. It's not that hard. I think about it now. I mean, there's three things I'm grateful for right now. First of all, I was able to wake up in time. And that another thing is, that when you're on dialysis, you can't drink as much liquids, but I can drink as much as I need to now. I'm grateful for that, and then grateful that I got to sit here with you. So that's three things right there.
Yep.
So ladies and gentlemen, it's that easy. It's not that hard. I mean, I'm sure you can, if you're online, whether you replay or you're live now, put three things in that you're thankful for right now. What are you thankful for right now? I think that would be fascinating to see that. Put it in the comments. Don't be shy about it. And then you go back and look back at it. I think that I love that. I love that. A gratitude diary. So I love that. I don't know how to get over that one. But you're right. I think a lot of times people overcomplicate
Mhm.
everything in life. I mean, in the world of technology, and we love technology, in the world of all the things, we tend to overcomplicate even the simplest things.
And I couldn't agree more. And, there's a lot more research, a lot more study out there now, as I say, about the mind body connection. And if you can do the one simplest thing and keep your mindset going by not overcomplicating it, it's so easy to overcomplicate your approach to health and how you understand it. And yes, it's a complicated subject, and when they use all the big words and the medical terminology, it's easy to get lost in that. But if you start with a decision to do something positive for yourself and keep it simplistic, it's a massive help. It's a massive boost.
Yeah, and medical terminology can be a little over the top. It,
Way over the top.
I don't, where I'm from, I like to use simple words. To kind of, I live back here in the woods, so to speak. Just a simple area with simple folk, I guess you would say. What's that song? Ricky Skaggs plays, "A Simple Life." It's kind of what I like to live, simple life. So sometimes in the medical terminology, it can overwhelm you. Then you're the thing is, it goes back. You hear medical terminology, and then you push it in your phone, and that pops up 20 different things, and 21 of them are negative, and you can't find one positive around it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Avoid Dr. Google. That's the most positive step anyone can take.
I have said that for so long. Don't talk to Dr. Google. It's the worst thing that you could do,
So, yeah.
because you can, you type anything in, it gives you everything out there. And one of the things I did a research project and we were talking about some certain thing, and one of the things I said is too much of the wrong information can affect somebody's decision. You have the wrong information. You got Dr. Google, you've got some of these, I guess, social groups on different social websites.
Hmm.
Everybody, they kind of put them all together in this one thing. Now, I'm not against having a support group. I think that's fantastic. But, you put it in the, put it, you say, well, I'm having this issue. You put it in the support group. Next thing you know, you have 20 comments giving you 20 different diagnoses, and not one of them is a doctor. I mean, go to your actual GP or your PCP or whatever, the doctor, and find out exactly. It could be the simplest thing. You may, who knows, get dehydrated. I don't know. Just saying. And next thing, your mind will take you to a place. Oh, I'm gonna, uh, you know, I can think of a thing. I had an issue while I was driving one day, and then having to call my transplant team. You know, hey, I couldn't get a hold of them, and I'm going back, and I'm saying, oh no, my kidneys fell, and which modality do I want to go on now? And you see how the mind works. It's maybe this would be better, maybe this would be better, and they sent me for blood work. I went home from work, got the news back as the best blood work they had seen. It was nothing. It wasn't nothing. That's just something that would happen. So look how the mind worked right there. It just next thing I know, I was putting myself on dialysis. I didn't even need to be thinking about that. Back on dialysis.
Yeah, it's
So
very, very easy to get a single thought and then spiral out of control. Um, but again, if you do everything you can to control it, to understand it, to get it, then
I think what was it that some of the best advice is if it's true, if it's pure, if it's good, if it's a good report, think on those things. Don't think of the bad things. That don't do anybody any good. Don't do anybody good with the negative people. It, Here's one thing I do want to talk about just a little bit. We're going to wrap up here in a little bit, but we have to be careful of our support groups. We want to surround ourselves with people that are the positive, that help us. So be careful with who you hang around. Be careful who you talk to.
mhm.
But especially when you're going through that time, ladies and gentlemen, find people that will lift you up and not tell you great Aunt Matilda. And I'm sorry if anybody's name is Matilda. I'm not trying to be any, but great Aunt Matilda had the same thing you had and passed away from it. Find the people that will encourage you, that will help you during that time. And I think you were talking a little bit about you. It sounds like you had a great support system with your family when this was always going through to help you work through that. So I mean, it, is there certain people that you look for in your support group?
um, it was interesting. My support group wasn't where I thought it would be, but I'm very grateful for it. Family, obviously, although they were kind of on the roller coaster with me and trying to put a brave face on at times. But yeah, I am again just thinking positively. I kept the sort of the down moments and the hard emotions to one or two people that I trusted. But when the good things happened, when I got some great hospital results, when I was going through, you know, various things in hospital, and you know, I have my own oh, novel of funny little anecdotal stories from being in hospital, as I'm sure we all do. Um, but I'd share them with my business club, my network group, Revitalize, and the amount of support and love and well wishes and everything that came back from that was a massively powerful part of my recovery. They were fully behind me. I stepped out. They didn't see me for a great part of the time when we started getting back to seeing people again, and it was just really good to know they were there. And going back and doing what I'm doing now, working with them all, it was great to go back and, you know, hugs, handshakes, well wishes, lots of support, and big, big smiles everywhere I went. It's just a massive part, and it all ties into the positivity that we were talking about. I use the phrase I'm now presenting and introducing things as well. And I used the phrase at the start of a meeting the other day of finding your tribe. Find the people that are there to support you, to lift you up, to do well by you, to see you on the right path. And it makes such a difference in life, in health, in business, in everything that you do. So it's a massively important part of that. As you say, you find the right people there for you. Um, my social circle, as it was an interesting kettle of fish and an interesting journey I went on with them. They're all still there. They're all fully supportive. For some, it was very close to home and they didn't communicate a lot throughout it. But we're back on an even keel. So again, all positive, all very good.
Okay. Now I have to ask this one question. Okay, we're getting down close to the end of time, but I see this that you sent. You're a member of the adult fans of Lego.
Yes, I am.
You want to share a little bit about that?
Uh, I am a bit of a geek. I'm sorry to say it. I have grown up and loved Star Wars, and when I found that Star Wars and Lego had got together about 15 years ago, that was it. I was hooked, and actually, I have got a really massive Lego collection of Star Wars Lego. And over the last 2 or 3 years, Lego have diversified and brought out adult only sets, which have been great. And yeah, I think I'm at the point now where I need to buy a bigger house to put my entire collection out. So, sorry. Uh, so yes, I am, and I'm also, just to top it all off, a fully paid up member of an AFOL group called the Tartan Lego Users Group. So shout out to those guys. But yes, that's an official Lego term as well. An AFOL, adult fan of Lego.
That is funny. Because I played with Legos as a kid. I think it's a great tool to open up the imagination, the door to the imagination to be able to kind of show you your potential. But uh, Legos and Star Wars, I think they do go because I'm a Star Wars fan myself. I'm kind of a geek. I'm more into the books, more into the books and the Old Republic and things like that. I love that stuff. I love to see the different things of that nature. Not as big in the first order, maybe as some. But like I said, I'm more of the Old Republic going up, leading up, and now we could go into a show on Star Wars, but probably not a good idea. But putting them with Legos together, I love that because I love seeing the different sets when I see them when they come out every now and again. I haven't bought a Lego set in years because
Oh,
but my son discovered my Lego set because I had a pretty big turd of them, and he grabs them and he starts building whatever he wants to build, and I'm like, go for it.
encourage it, push them, encourage it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's like amazing. It's like I'm seeing him build these buildings. Oh, look at Daddy, I made an airplane, and I'm like, yeah, I see it. Yeah, that's what I did when I was young. I built Legos. My dad used to build like the pirate ship. I don't know if you remember the old pirate ship they had, or the admiral ship. My parents would spend all night, 4 or 5 hours building this thing. By the next morning when I came in, within 10 minutes, I had it destroyed and built something else.
Brilliant.
Well, we're coming down to our last 5 minutes. Is there any last words you would, I don't know, like saying any encouraging words or anything you would like to leave our audience today?
As I say, just try and do one little thing a day to change your mindset, to think positively, be grateful for. I think it's challenging, but you know what? Life, health issues aside, life is challenging at the best of times. We've all got our own ups and downs and our own problems and our own things. Find your own support group that's going to lift you up, as we say. Do something positive every day, and yeah, don't stress about it. It's easy to get on the negative trail and spiral downwards, but I think yeah, it's important that you always look up, always look forward, and put one foot in front of the other, and take a step forward every day.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I know we've still got a few minutes, but I think I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very
We'll
much for
see.
inviting me.
I really appreciate. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I think so many different people can use this in so many different aspects. Not only those that have been diagnosed, but so many different other aspects in life. And I hope that those of you in the audience, I hope you take it and you apply it, utilize the information that has been given from Jay. I appreciate him coming on, and you know, I really hope that you'll be encouraged on your next journey wherever y'all are. And Jay, I'm glad to hear the good news. It's always wonderful to hear his good news. So
Thank you very much. And I was just going to say
congratulations
as
to
well,
both.
Ant, I was just going to say very quickly, Ant, as well, if anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, have a chat, I'm more than happy to. Not a problem at all.
Yes, and I think even just a 15-minute chat with Jay is absolutely phenomenal. So I highly encourage it.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to cut the feed. Jay, if you want to stay on just a few minutes, and we're going to go ahead and end the show. But until next time, y'all be encouraged because you're one step closer to next week. Have a good day.